but me, your man, Louie Tee. Welcome to the 2018 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where your man Louie Tee aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2018 NFL Draft using our baseball grading scale: single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series, as we cannot tell how these players are going to pan out. I don't want to discount any of these young men before they get their chance in the National Football League. And so we'll get a score for each and every single player selected in said team's draft. We'll apply bonuses when necessary, divide by the number of picks, which will yield us an overall grade for that team's draft. We'll then move on to the next team in the series picked by you. That's right, you, the viewer, are in total control, as this is the You Pick format. Simply be the first to leave a comment in the comment section of this and future videos in this series stating two things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. Some examples would be Rams next, L.A. Rams next. You get where I'm going with this. So the next team up in the series is none other than the Los Angeles Rams. And what an offseason it has been. Really, the last two off seasons have been a whirlwind for this organization, as we've seen them go from NFL bottom feeder to true NFL contender in just 2 seasons. And so they draft Jared Goff, they get a new head coach, and things start to turn around. Jared Goff struggled in his rookie season, so they bring in Sean McVay last year. They switch the defense around, bring in Wade Phillips. Things all of a sudden are on the up and up. Todd Gurley looks like a new player. He's got a new contract. They go out, they get Samuel Watkins. Maybe he wasn't what they thought he was going to be. He gets new money on the market, goes to the Chiefs. So what do? They trade for Brandon Cooks, give up a first-round pick to New England to get the services of Cooks, rip up his old deal that only had a year remaining on it, give him new money. You look at the trade for Aqib Talib. You look at the signing of Ndamukong Suh. This is a different roster. Out with the old, in with the new. They have acquired a lot of different pieces. They franchise tagged LaMarcus Joyner. They got rid of one of their linebackers, traded him off to the Giants. So in Ogletree, this is a team that looks vastly different. And this is one of those moves in terms of this offseason that screams, we want to win, and we want to win now. But the beauty of what they've done is they haven't locked themselves up into some bad deals long term. Everything that they've done has given them cap flexibility moving forward. That's why you look at all of these deals that they've been giving out of late, and you're saying, where are they getting all this money? They've got quite a bit of cap flexibility. And so they look like a team that's on the up and up. This draft, however, wasn't the greatest draft. And I'm going to be honest with you. I hate drafts. I abhor drafts like this, where you get 10, 11 players and 5 of them are 6th round or later, because generally speaking, those guys aren't going to make your football team. And so you're just stockpiling a bunch of guys, throwing a bunch of darts at the dartboard, hoping that 1 or 2 of them stick. And frankly, that really bothers me, because it gives me a lot more work to do for guys that aren't going to be around when the season starts. Nonetheless, my job is to break them down, and that's what I did. And so this is a draft where I looked at the Rams and I said, look, you didn't have a first-round pick because of the trade for Cooks. You didn't have a second-round pick because of the trade last year for Samuel Watkins. So they got busy in the 3rd round, and once they started, they did not stop making selections, 11 in all. And a lot of them, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know how they fit into this Rams organization long-term. Some of these guys are going to get opportunities because this is a young football team with a young organization. And again, when you're paying big money and they still have a big fish to make happy in Aaron Donald, never, ever trust a man with 2 first names. When you have a situation like that looming over your head and you have to pay a lot of guys, which they've done so in this offseason, and they've still got more to pay, like a LaMarcus Joyner, if they're going to pay him, then you've got to make sure you get good, cheap labor out of the draft. So they're trying here with a bunch of young players. We'll see if they hit on any of these guys, as they've moved on from, as I said, Ogletree. And you could tell that they moved on from Robert Quinn in this year's draft, because they went after edge rusher as a position of need. We'll see if they were able to hit on any of those positions. Linebacker, as they went after aggressively in this draft, and the position of edge rusher. And they also realized they need offensive line depth. With Jamon Brown's suspension, they're going to need guys, and you never know injury, and you saw Andrew Whitworth come in and change that left tackle position, but Andrew Whitworth is not a young spring chicken. They know they need help, so they went out and got some depth along the offensive line. Speaking of which, that's where we start in this draft. 3rd round, 89th overall selection, offensive tackle out of TCU, Joseph Noteboom is the selection. So Joseph Noteboom is an intriguing player for a number of reasons. He's extremely athletic for his size, as we'll talk about here. Was extremely raw coming in to college, and had to fill out his frame. And you can see the makings of a guy taking the steps necessary to get where he needs to be to excel at the next level. Not quite there yet, but I'll tell you this much. Each year you got to see him get better, because I went all the way back to 2015 and watched this guy, because he walked onto the campus essentially and started after his redshirt year. He jumped in the fray and didn't miss a game, didn't miss a beat, and you could see him growing physically. You could see him growing mentally. You could see him getting better, especially that final year from 2016 to 2017. I thought there was a significant jump in his level of play, because I was not impressed in 2016 very much. 2017, very much so impressed with what I saw out of Joseph Noteboom. And I think it's that type of improvement that I think the Rams saw and pulled the trigger on him in the 3rd round. As we talk about Joseph Noteboom, 6'5", 309 pounds out of TCU, 4.96 40. So right there, you see the athleticism jump off at you. 27 reps of 2 1/4. So he's getting physically stronger. This was a guy that came to school as a gangly, long, scraggly, 265-pound type of offensive lineman. And they gave him a year to get his body into shape in terms of strength. And they put him on the field, and he continued to get stronger. He got better. And those 27 reps represent a guy that came a long way in terms of his strength. And he's got a little ways to go. And I think he'll get even stronger. He'll get even better at being able to anchor down. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. 34-inch arms, they help out a ton. When you're talking about in this league, being a tackle, you need to have length at the tackle position. And he's looked at and viewed upon as a guy that can play both tackle positions and be a swing tackle for the Rams, as they don't need him to start right away. They've got guys that they really like and trust at both left and right tackle right now, but it's good to know you've got someone developing that you trust to play both positions behind your starters. Played in all 53 collegiate games that he was available for, starting 40 of them consecutively to finish his career. So this is a guy that stays healthy. That's also a huge thing. Availability is the best ability to have in this league, and he never missed a game in his collegiate career, as I mentioned before. Good measurables, as I started out talking about. Really good movement skills is something that you'll notice with him when you watch him on tape. As far as technique is concerned, have down in my notes here, not always textbook, but effective. Doesn't shoot his hands soon enough for me, allowing defenders into his body, which leads us to our next talking point when we talk about anchoring. He's not terrible at anchoring, okay? It's not a situation where he is just getting dump trucked into the lap of his quarterback. But I did see him struggle versus Oklahoma with the bull rush. Seems to be his biggest flaw right now. And if you tell me that a guy's biggest flaw is the bull rush, and I also have prior information that is something that he's been continuing to work on and he's getting better at, but not quite there at, I'm going to be ecstatic about that, because there's certain things you can't fix. You can't fix lack of length. You can't fix slow feet. Okay, those are things that either you have or you don't have. You either have quickness with your feet and the ability to move, or you don't. You can't teach that. You either have the ability to have the length or you don't. You can't teach length. You can get a guy to to be stronger. You can work with a guy and get him to be physically stronger. So if that's his biggest flaw, it's not a lot that I'm concerned about when talking about Joseph Noteboom. Like I said, the technique isn't always the best, but it's effective, and guys don't beat him very often. And so I'll take him needing to get a little bit stronger. Balance. He's got plus balance. I mean, there aren't many times you see this guy off balance, and that's when you'll see a guy get bull rushed a lot of times. Even in the situations where he got bull rushed, I don't think it was a situation of just balance. I just thought he was caught off guard by the bull rush, maybe looking for something else, got a different move. Of course, the bull rush being the move he got, and he was maybe looking for speed or looking for something else. So I think his balance is solid. Good toughness. Pass blocking ability. He gets the job done. Gritty and effective is what I put in my notes. It's not always the prettiest. I liken him to Will Richardson, a guy that was drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars out of NC State. A guy that's going to be a right tackle potentially in this league, but I think also may have the ability to play left in a pinch. Not the prettiest in terms of technique with Will Richardson or Joseph Noteboom, but it's effective, and that's all that matters in this league. It doesn't have to be the prettiest. It doesn't have to look aesthetically pleasing. It just has to get the job done, protect the quarterback, open up holes in the run game, and that's what he was able to do at TCU. Speaking of which, run blocking ability, puts a body on a body, but doesn't always sustain. If you ask me what was the next biggest concern for me, it's that in the run game, he's a guy that will put a body on a body, but won't necessarily sustain the block, meaning he'll make contact, but that guy can disengage and get to the ball carrier. I think he's got to do a better job of drive blocking, or at least engaging and staying engaged until the ball carrier has passed him, so that that guy that he's engaged with isn't the one that ultimately makes the play, or at least slows the back down to allow someone else to. He's got to do a better job of holding on to that defender, and not literally holding and gaining a penalty, but just making sure that that defender doesn't make a play. Finish, he's a nice guy. Joseph Noteboom is a really, really nice guy. Translation, he doesn't have any nasty in him. He's not going to be a guy that's going to put somebody's dick in the dirt, okay? He's looking to just do his job, go back to the huddle, and see what the next call is so he can do his job again. He's not looking to drive somebody's face mask into the dirt and then drop his 310-pound frame on top. That's just not what he's looking to do. He's not looking to take a guy and take him 2 yards into the sidelines, into his offensive coordinator, and throw him in the way. He's just looking to block a guy. And once he's done his job, he's cool with that, and he's ready to go back. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just like my offensive lineman with a little nasty. That's all. It's a physical, nasty position to play. Anytime you're in the trenches, offensive or defensive line, you got to have a little nasty in you if you want to exceed what is expected of you. You can do your job just fine not being nasty, and that's what Joseph Noteboom does. But you want to exceed what is asked of you, you got to be a little nasty, and I just don't see that in him. Awareness, he's got solid awareness on twists and stunts. He picks those up well, picks up blitzers and things of that nature. Recovery, recovers well inside. I was so impressed with his recovery to the inside. A lot of times guys with really good athleticism have the ability to recover inside and outside. And guys like Noteboom are rare, because inside is usually a problem for tackles. You can get a guy around the outside. He's got long enough arms. He got length. He'll be able to push you around the pocket and sustain and win that rep. Even though he lost early on, he'll win the battle eventually with pushing you around and giving the quarterback an opportunity to step up in the pocket. What will hurt guys a lot of times is they open up too soon. They don't have the athleticism to then turn, redirect, and get back inside to chase a guy that's beating them to the inside. Joseph Noteboom has enough athleticism to be able to say, oh, made a mistake. He's going inside, turn, redirect, and get his body in a position to at least salvage the rep. So I love his recovery skills to the inside. Don't think he's that great as a puller. Again, not a nasty guy. So pulling is a nasty chore. You come around and you're supposed to see red, and the first guy you see, you're supposed to put him on his ass. It's just not Joseph Noteboom. But availability is Joseph Noteboom. Didn't miss a collegiate game, so obviously that is a big get for the Rams as well. So when I look at Joseph Noteboom overall, I see a quality swing tackle right now, with the eventual possibility of this guy starting at either left or right tackle. Right now, I've always been a fan of and a big proponent of, until a guy proves to you that he can't, let him show that he can. I'll put this guy at left tackle. And like, again, your left tackle position is going to be the one that comes up first. You've got Rob Havenstein over there at right tackle, doing just fine. You've got Andrew Whitworth at left tackle. He's about 35, 36 years old. At some point, he's not going to be able to do it at a high level. In comes Joseph Noteboom, I think. So we'll see what happens. But I love the pick. It gives you the type of depth that you're going to need in a long NFL season. You were one of the few fortunate teams last year that didn't sustain a bunch of injuries. You may not be as fortunate this year, and guys like Joseph Noteboom may have to play sooner rather than later. So this is a good pick in the third round. 89th overall to get this draft started. Offensive tackle out of TCU, Joseph Noteboom, for me, is... For those of you scoring at home, Joseph Noteboom was a triple to kick off this Rams draft as we go to the fourth round, 111th overall selection. Offensive lineman out of Michigan State, Brian Allen, is the selection. So you go from very reserved to absolutely nasty, which is the way you want it. You want a nasty boy. Nasty boy. You want a nasty boy. This is one on the offensive line, and I'm going to tell you, Michigan State, I watched, obviously watching Brian Allen, but just watching them in general. I've watched them a couple of times just because I've been in the Big Ten quite a bit this year. A lot of Big Ten players were selected in this draft. They're nasty. Michigan State's offensive line, they're gross. They're grotesque. I love it. There were a couple of plays where I watched guys just do things that they had no business doing for no other reason other than they could, and it's fun to watch. When you disrespect a man in the rain after the play's over for no reason other than because you want to show that guy that I'm the man and I'm sending you a message that you don't want none of this today. It's wet. It's nasty. This is my type of game. Come get some. Boy, I watched them beat up Michigan physically. Nobody beats up Michigan. Not this past year with the way that defensive line and that front seven was stacked. You don't beat up Michigan. You don't run the football on Michigan. Watch Michigan State pound those boys. And it wasn't a 200-yard performance, but nobody, when I say nobody ran on Michigan this year. Michigan State ran on Michigan this year. And again, it wasn't like they ran for 5.6 yards per carry. It's probably still under 4 yards, but it was effective. And when they had to have it late in the ball game, they got it. They moved the line of scrimmage, and they were physical in that game. And one of the most physical dudes in that game, this man right here, and Brian Allen, 6'1", 298 out of Michigan State, 32-inch arms, 5.34 40, 27 reps of 2 1/4. Played in 51 games, started 38 of them, 17 at center, 16 at left guard, 5 at right guard. So you're getting interior versatility here, a guy that can play all 3 interior offensive line positions, but obviously his best position is that of center, and that's where I think he belongs and needs to be. But again, if you need him in a pinch, he will be able to step in and help you at any of the guard positions and center. So from guard to guard, this guy can get in and get the job done. And he was a team captain at Michigan State. Do not discount that either. Measurables. That's the only con I have on him, so I'll knock that out quickly. Short arms. All right, I told you 32-inch arms and less than desirable weight. This guy is south of 300 pounds. If that's your biggest issue, okay, we can't fix the arms. His arms are the size they are. But if your biggest issue is the fact that you're south of 300 pounds, he'll get over 300 pounds. He'll put on some weight. It'll be good weight. He'll be stronger. He'll be more physical. He'll be fine at the next level. Everything you're looking for in an interior offensive lineman, I saw in Brian Allen. And so the measurables are the only thing that really concern me. But again, they really don't, because he got the job done, and I expect him to get the job done at the next level. Athleticism, I told you he was a 5'3", 440. So I was expecting a really slow, plodding offensive lineman, a guy that couldn't get out in front of plays and do anything. I was shocked at what I saw. Better athlete, better movement skills than the combine time indicates. He really can pick him up and put him down, man. I was really impressed with his fluidity, getting out in space as a puller, getting to reach blocks, scooping guys, getting those scoop blocks. I was so impressed with Brian Allen, man. Technique, outstanding technique, understands angles. When you're not the best athlete in the world, you better understand angles. You better have sound technique, because that's going to overcompensate for your lack of athleticism. You know angles. You don't have to be the best athlete. You know where you're going. You know where the play's going. You know how to get there before the defender does. You'll figure it out. And that's what Brian Allen has done. Anchor. This is another thing that was close to being a con, not quite there, but can be driven back. And it is connected to his measurables. Can be driven back by longer, much more powerful defenders. Pause. He's a guy that obviously doesn't have the longest arms in the world. So if he comes up against, say, a Calais Campbell, a guy that's 6'7", with probably 35-inch arms, that's strong as an ox, he may not win that battle if he doesn't get up under Calais Campbell's pads soon enough, and Calais Campbell is able to stretch those arms out and really become a problem. That's the type of guy that I watch give Brian Allen fits on tape, but they were few and far between. But that is something that can be of concern with him. But again, I have nothing but the utmost confidence in Brian Allen's ability to get it done at any of the guard positions or center, especially center. Tremendous balance. Also, toughness. I put down in my notes the kind of grittiness you want in the middle of your offensive line. I mean, he's the kind of guy that will be a leader. He'll make the line calls, but he's the guy that sets the tone for everybody else. You want a nasty, physical, gritty guy in the pivot position of your offensive line, and that's exactly what Brian Allen is. Pass blocking ability, I put can be bullied at times. I talked about that with the anchor and with the measurable, so that's not a surprise, but he holds his own. Run blocking ability, I put down in my notes, excels in run blocking department. That's probably where he shines the most, is when you ask this guy to go and get out as a puller, or you ask this guy to get to a reach block, or you ask this guy to just contact the closest defender to him on a double team and then climb to the second level and get a piece of the backer. Brian Allen is at home in his office when he's in the run game. Finish, I already told you, he's a nasty boy. So there's nothing to talk about there other than this guy is physical. That entire Michigan State, they play with an attitude that you're looking for as an offensive line coach. Those are the kind of guys you want to work with. Guys that are looking to be physical, nasty, and want to inflict pain and punishment on the guy in front of them. And not in a negative way in terms of hurting somebody, but they're looking to take a man's will from him. By the time the fourth quarter comes around, this guy doesn't want anymore. He's been getting his ass whooped all game. Doesn't want any. And that's what you want in an offensive lineman. And he was a part of an offensive line that had that mentality. And it's all mentality. It's all mental. Joseph Noteboom just isn't wired that way. But Brian Allen is. Awareness. I put down in my notes, would like to see him react to late rushers a little bit better. I watched him versus Washington State react a little too late to a late blitzer coming around, and that blitzer was able to put pressure on the quarterback and hit him, make him get rid of the football a lot quicker than he wanted to. I just like to see him come off of a double team and be a little bit quicker to help. If you see a guy's already got it, you don't need to stay there and help him further. Make sure that the rest of the pocket is secure, and sometimes he can be a little slow to do that. Looking for work, he could look for work a little bit better. I'm nitpicking here, okay? I think he's fine in terms of looking for work, but I like my guys to be a little bit more aware, head on a swivel when looking for work. He's one of those guys that sometimes he'll look around, and then if nothing's there, he'll just do nothing on that play. Hey, go get a piece of somebody. Go light somebody's ribs up. Go do something, productive to help the play out. But I'm nitpicking again, like I said. Good snap to set. Double team and pulling, I think, are both exceptional. Great on the double team. Climbs to the second level effortlessly. And availability, he was a really durable player for Michigan State. I really like this pick a lot, man. Similar to the Joseph Noteboom pick, gives you great depth along the offensive line for a team that wants to run it, and because of the run, be able to do so many things in the passing game. You need depth along the offensive line. Brian Allen's going to be that, and eventually he's going to start for you at some point. And so I'm confident in that. So I love this pick in the 4th round. Really good value here. 111th overall. Offensive lineman out of Michigan State, Brian Allen, for me, is. For those of you scoring at home, Brian Allen was another triple to start this Rams draft. This is where the draft takes a sharp turn, and now you're just hit or miss. I'm not quite sure about the rest of these guys. Some of them are going to fit some good roles on this football team. I'm sure of it. Others, not so much. And so this is where I start to say, all right, now you're just throwing darts. And it starts now in the 4th round, 135th overall selection. Defensive lineman out of Stephen F. Austin, John Franklin Myers is the selection. Sounds like a serial killer. And at times, that's exactly what he was doing on the football field, killing the opponent. But he played at a small school, so I expect that, and he did that at most times in college. 6'4", 283 pounds. This guy came a long way from a long, gangly defender in high school that really didn't receive any offers to a guy that made himself into a 4th round NFL draft pick. It's been a long road for John Franklin Myers. 33-inch arms, 4'7", 540. So you see the athleticism for a 280-plus pound defender. 26 reps of 2 1/4, 33-inch vert. So you see the athleticism there. His high school team went 0-40 during John Franklin Myers' high school career, 30 of which John Franklin Myers was a part of. Never won a game in high school. That's got to hurt, and that really hurt his recruiting process. You don't win games. It seems destitute there. There's not a lot to look at, and so he didn't get a lot of offers. Stephen F. Austin was one of his few offers. He took it. He ran with it, made the most of it. This guy was 230 pounds as a freshman, all right? Played at 297 pounds this upcoming season that passed, or this past season that went by as a senior. So basically played at 300 pounds. But then he showed up and dominated at the NFLPA game at 280 pounds. So I think his sweet spot is somewhere in that 285-pound neighborhood. Hopefully that's where he stays. 17 career sacks, 17 and a half to be more specific. 37 and a half tackles for loss, and 4 forced fumbles for John Franklin Myers. His measurables, as I mentioned, really good size at 283. I think he needs to stay right there where he is. He's going to be a really good 5 technique for the Los Angeles Rams. If they're looking for a guy to help them on the edge in their rotation, that's, I think, what they essentially identified him as, is a 5 technique in their base fronts. That's what he's going to be able to do for them. And you can see it translate on tape. And so his length, his size, and his quickness, which is our next pro, athleticism, rare quickness off the snap. This guy can get off the snap with the best of them. And you couple him with a guy like Aaron Donald and his quickness, and you all of a sudden got some problems on your hands. You know what I mean? And that's what you're looking for up front. A quick, aggressive, attacking defensive lineman. That's what John Franklin Myers is and can be. Obviously, we want to see if his ability to be quick off the snap was just him playing against inferior competition, or is that really what this guy brings to the table? Normally, athleticism translates wherever you go. It's not like he was just tossing guys out of the bar, and he was, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, but the quickness was probably what impressed me the most. Hand usage, flashes a nice swim to win early, and I talked about the quickness. Part of that quickness is him using a beautiful swim move to get into the backfield very quickly off the snap. Awareness, that's one of his cons. To me, that's a continued work in progress. He is a guy that sometimes doesn't see the football. He's a guy that I think needs to be more aware of what's going on around him sometimes. Get your hands up in the passing lane. As I didn't mention PBUs and knockdowns because he's not getting his hands up in there. Just be a little bit more aware of your surroundings and what's going on. You're not going to get to the quarterback. Get your hands up. You're a big, long defender. Pause. Do something to impact the play there. So his awareness is something he's going to continue to work on, and I think he'll get better as he plays and is more comfortable with what they're asking him to do. Point of attack physicality. Watched him dump truck numerous offensive linemen. Again, some of that is the competition. I watched him against Incarnate Word, okay? Incarnate Word. I watched him against Central Arkansas. Again, listen to these teams. So obviously he's playing against inferior competition. He dominated those guys. I saw him throw a couple of guys 2-3 yards out of the play at times. So very strong at the point of attack, but will that translate to the next level? We will see. Ability versus the run can be impactful, but neutralized by double teams. He's going to have to be a little bit better against double teams. Right now, I think when you double team him, you can take him out of plays. His quickness will help him split double teams, but if he tries to just take on double teams with strength, generally it doesn't work for him, and you can wash him out of plays at times with a double team. Pass rushing ability, this is really, really something that I think the Rams may be able to tap into. He has some juice as a pass rusher, a guy that can get some pressure. He doesn't necessarily have a bunch of moves per se, but he does have some juice off the snap, a guy that can get into the backfield and win early and be disruptive. And as a 5 technique, generally those guys don't get a ton of sacks unless you're special like a Cameron Jordan. This guy may be a Cameron Jordan. We'll see. I don't think he's got that kind of juice, but you never know. I saw some things on tape, and it may translate to the next level. And if they do, they could have themselves something here in John Franklin Myers. Motor and endurance are fine. So is his impact on the game, even though I think it could be better when he becomes a little bit more aware. But this is an intriguing prospect. Small school guy, a little early for a small school guy, but they like what they saw and they like the tools that he has to which to work. And I understand the upside here because I look at this guy and for Wade Phillips' aggressive 3-4 defense, I see a guy that could potentially put pressure on the quarterback and make it possible for the secondary to really be benefactors and beneficiaries of what he's able to do up front, along with guys like Aaron Donald. Never, ever trust a man with 2 first names. I could see this turning into a little bit of a problem if this guy can get into an NFL camp with this Rams football team and soak up everything like a sponge and continue to grow physically and mentally. I think they may have something here in the 4th round, 135th overall selection. Defensive lineman out of Stephen F. Austin, John Franklin Myers, the serial killer, is fifth round, 147th overall selection, linebacker out of Virginia. Micah Kiser is the pick. And for those of you scoring at home, JFM was a double as we move on to Micah Kiser. This is a guy that I watched quite a bit, being from Virginia. He played at UVA. Saw a lot of Micah Kiser. Him, along with one of the safeties that I was surprised that didn't get drafted. They were the heart and soul of that Virginia defense. And he was a guy that they could count on week in and week out to make plays, you know, make tackles, that sort of thing. 4'6", 40, 35.5-inch vert, 10-foot broad, 19 career sacks, 8 forced fumbles, 5 of them came in 2016, 32.5 tackles for loss, 13 PBUs, did not miss a game in his career, 3 straight 100-plus season tackles from 15 to 17, 6 feet, 238 pounds. I'm just going to tell you this right off the bat. The problem I see with Micah Kiser is I see an old school linebacker in a new school body. Okay, so what I mean by that is I see an old 1995 middle linebacker that was 257 pounds, that was 6'1", 6'2", 257 in a modern day linebacker body. I see a guy that should be running a 4.55. That's the kind of frame he has, but he's running a 4.66, and you see it on tape. He's not very fast. And so although he was ultra productive in college because of his smarts and his intuitiveness, that's only going to get you so far at the next level. Okay, Duke, they're not coming out of the tunnel opposite of you. You're not going to be playing against Wake Forest, right? You're not getting North Carolina next week. You're getting high-level athletes that can run really, really fast. That's David Johnson across the line of scrimmage from you. So I worry about Micah Kiser in certain situations, and I really see him as a two-down linebacker only. And even then, I still worry, can he get to certain plays? But again, very instinctive. That's going to help him if he is to make this team. But he's tough as nails. He can get guys on the ground. And there's always a spot, even on special teams, for a guy like Micah Kiser as we get to his measurables. Thick, compact frame, all right? At 6 feet, 238 pounds, he looks the part of a physical, imposing linebacker. But again, in a modern day body, south of 240, not north of 6 feet. So again, he looks like today's NFL linebacker, but he doesn't run like today's NFL linebacker. Speed. This is what might stop him from being anything more than a two-down linebacker or a special teams contributor. And that's just facts. It's just what it is. When you don't run as fast, you are at a disadvantage in this league. At the tight end position, guys are running faster than ever. The running backs in this league are dynamic out of the backfield. He's just going to be at a disadvantage in obvious passing situations. He's going to have to come off the field. Athleticism. Good enough when coupled with astute awareness and instincts. So his athleticism is good enough coupled with his ability to think the game, see things before they happen, and react to them before they actually take place. Acceleration, probably most present on blitzes as a free hitter. I watched him versus Indiana and versus Boise State come absolutely free up the A-gap. He was flying. But generally, he's not going to get opportunities as a free hitter to just come unmolested, unabated to the ball carrier. So you won't get to see that acceleration as often as you probably would like to. Awareness, high-level football IQ. This is what's going to probably help him make this football team. He's very responsible as a defender. Good eye discipline, knows where to be, when to be there. Generally doesn't jump into the wrong gap, very gap sound and gap disciplined. Like I said, he does most things right, just lacking in the athleticism department. He sheds well. For a guy that's 240 pounds, he's a guy that sheds well. He'll take on blockers, and he loves to take on blocks, and he can disengage and get to ball carriers. I put down man's up in the hole. He's slamming on offensive linemen, fullbacks, guys that are coming to wham him in the hole. He's snapping heads back. So he's physical in the hole. Tackling ability, he's a tackling machine. I talked about the 3 straight consecutive years of 100-plus tackles. There's a reverse versus Boise, and Quinn Blanding was the safety that I referenced earlier as the other guy that was on that UVA defense that was a standout for them over these last 4 years. They go and make a joint tackle on a reverse, and it was Blanding first getting into the backfield to blow up the reverse, and then it was Micah Kiser cleaning it up. Now, he didn't have the athleticism to get there initially, but he's the type of guy, he won't get there first. But if someone slows down the running back or receiver on a wide receiver screen, here comes Micah Kiser to clean it up, and that'll be his job and role a lot of times, is the cleanup man. Blitzing capabilities. No creativity, but times them up well and is a bully. I watched him just utterly destroy a running back versus Indiana on a blitz where the running back he couldn't have been any more than 5'10", about a $195. And Michael Kaiser said, really? You think you're going to block me? And he just steamrolled that guy. I mean, just blew him up and ran after the quarterback, forced the quarterback to get rid of the football. So he's got no creativity. He's not going to juke anybody or run around anyone or spin or anything. He looks like one of those guys that you'd be able to cut relatively easy. He's not jumping over a cut block, but if you don't come with your hard hat and your lunch pail and your thermos, he's probably going to run your ass over as a back. So he can get to the quarterback. Talked about the 19 career sacks. He's not bashful when rushing after the quarterback. He's got limited range. I don't expect him to be sideline to sideline, but again, solid enough when it's coupled with his smarts on the football field. Some cons here with him are coverage, and I don't really expect him to be on the field for zone or man coverage. He doesn't have a career interception in his career, nor should he. Doesn't have the athleticism to be in the right place at the right time, and sometimes that's all about just being smart, but it takes a level of athleticism to be in the right place and make plays on the football. And like I said, he's a two-down linebacker at best at the next level. But in the 5th round, 147th overall selection, linebacker out of UVA, Micah Kiser for me is. And for those of you scoring at home, Micah Kiser is a double, and you're in the 5th round, so you get what you get when you get to this point of the draft. Speaking of which, this could be the crown jewel of this draft when we look back if this guy develops the way that I think he may potentially develop. In the 5th round, 160th overall selection, Ogbonnia Okoronkwo, Oklahoma edge rusher, is the selection. So Ogbonnia Okoronkwo is a very unique specimen. I was really down on him going into the draft, and most people just call him Obo. But Ogbonnia Okoronkwo is a very intriguing prospect. A guy that I looked at Oklahoma and I said, he's not as good as people think he is. And I thought that the 5th round selection validated that in a draft that wasn't stocked and chocked full of a bunch of talented edge rushers. You had to get one early if you wanted one of substance. I thought this guy would have come off the board sooner after watching the tape, because initially before watching the tape, I said, yeah, that's probably right about where he should have come off the board. But I watched this guy and I see a lot of traits that I like and a lot of things that I think could make him a problem at the next level. I could see him being a Justin Houston type 2-3 years down the road. I really, really could. Let's talk about him. 6'2", 253 pounds, coming out of Oklahoma. 34-inch arms, 4'7", 740. 27 reps of 2 1/4, 38-inch vert, 10-foot broad. So the 4.47 coupled with the 38-inch broad and the 38-inch vert and the 10-foot broad tells you that this guy's got some explosiveness and some juice off the edge. 20 career sacks, 35 and a half tackles for loss, 5 forced fumbles, and 5 PBUs. So let's jump into what he brings to the table. Measurables: tremendous length and enough size to roughhouse tight ends on the edge. I saw him blow up some tight ends and then jump back inside and make some tackles. Will he be able to do the same thing with offensive linemen? Maybe, maybe not. I think that's part of the reason why he dropped in this draft, is because people don't see him as a guy that you can have on the field in the run game on first and second down. And also, he's more of a guy that is probably pigeonholed as a 3-4 outside linebacker, not a guy that's capable of putting his hand in the dirt on first and second down as a base 4-3 defensive end. So I think that might have dropped his stock as well. But this is a 3-4 defense we're talking about here in Los Angeles with the Rams. So this is a perfect fit for what they're looking for. And no more Quinn. And I didn't think Robert Quinn necessarily fit as a guy that was a 2-point stance defender without his hand in the dirt. He's more of a base 4-3 defensive end, which is why I think he'll fit a lot better in Miami than he would here with the Rams. Athleticism, better movement skills than I gave him credit for. I didn't think he moved as well as he did. He moved so well that Oklahoma actually felt comfortable putting him in some really awkward situations that I don't think really benefited him. But nonetheless, the fact that he was put in those positions goes to show that they felt comfortable with his athleticism being able to run with a running back 30 yards down the field. Now, I wouldn't recommend that at the next level because I didn't think he was that great at it at college at Oklahoma, but they knew he was capable, and so his athleticism, I was impressed with what I saw from him on tape. Explosiveness, this is his best trait right now to date. His explosiveness, it's what's going to give him an opportunity to not only make this roster, which I fully expect him to do, but it's going to give him a chance to wreak havoc in his rookie season, get you 6.5, get you 8.5 sacks in his rookie campaign. It's this explosiveness here. Extremely twitchy. His get off scares athletically challenged tackles and opens up Pandora's box. So let me explain that further. When you have a tackle that doesn't move his feet as well, doesn't necessarily get out of his stance quick enough and get out of the blocks, they have to overcompensate for a guy like Obo's speed, his explosiveness off the snap. And in doing so, what you do is you open up Pandora's box. Because if I get a tackle to open up his hips and become parallel to the offensive, to the line of scrimmage, I've got him right where I want him. Because now what I can do is I can go inside. And I haven't seen a better crossover in the last 3 years watching players come out of the draft. I haven't seen a better crossover. And all a crossover is what I talk about all the time. Hard outside, back inside. That quick, hard step outside, crossover, go inside. His crossover, his hard outside, back inside is stupid. It is ridiculous. It is the move that I watched single-handedly get him 4 sacks on tape and another 4 or 5 holding penalties on tackles that just couldn't deal. So his explosiveness to the outside, you give that guy the explosiveness to the outside, you scare the bejesus out of him, and then they start to open up quickly, and then you cross their ass up with an Allen Iverson type crossover, an AI special. Bam! They're done. They cannot deal with that kind of quickness, and that's what he has. And I'm going to tell you right now, the most direct line to the quarterback is inside pressure. It scares quarterbacks way worse than a guy with speed off the edge that has to turn the corner at 7.5 yards. The guy that can win inside will much more fluster a quarterback than a guy that can win on the outside. Obo can win going in, and that is scary for quarterbacks and offensive tackles alike. Hand usage, I think he can improve in that department, but he does have a rip that he uses when he wins with speed off the edge, but he needs to improve his hand usage. Awareness, he's got good awareness, gets his hands up in the passing lane when he knows he's not going to get there. He sees plays in front of him, knows where the ball carrier is at all times, doesn't chase the bait down the line on play actions and bootlegs and things of that nature. He's really sound in staying at home, setting the edge. You can run at him in the run game. He's 253 pounds. You can run at him. You can run power and off tackle at him. Running away from him is a problem because he will chase plays down backside pursuit with his athleticism. So you're probably better off running at him directly than running away from him where he is in his comfort zone chasing plays down from behind. Redirect, I think he's got really good fluidity out in space, ability versus the run. He can be disruptive with quickness to the inside, which I mentioned before. He can knife into the backfield. And also as a backside pursuit defender, he can impact the run. But you can run at him, and that is something that I think teams were turned off by when assessing him as a run defender. Pass rushing ability, he has 3 moves, 2 that are elite. And in this league, you just need 2. If you've got a third, that makes it even sweeter. But if you can just get by with 2 elite moves, you can do some damage in this league. His 2 moves are the speed and the crossover, but he's also got a spin move that's not half bad. I'd like to see him employ that a little bit more because I think if he can use that spin move a little bit more, that's just something else tackles have to prepare for. And it's a nice, clean, fluid movement spin. What I mean by that is he's actually gaining ground up the field. You know how some guys spin in place like a top when they spin, this guy's spinning up the field like you're supposed to. He's got some juice, man, off the edge. Tackling ability, solid as a tackler, but did completely slide off of Nick Chubb on his 40-yard touchdown run in the playoff game. So I'd like to see him be better as a tackler. That was a big miss in that football game. Got to get guys down when you get two arms around them. He did not get Nick Chubb down, and he ran for a touchdown. Motor and endurance, both solid. Impact on the game. I love his impact on the game. I watched this guy destroy a couple of teams without even getting a sack. That Texas game, you know, what do they call it now? It used to be the Red River Shootout. They changed it to something else because shootout was too negative. The connotation was whatever it is now. It's a big game in Texas every year between those two teams. And that was a fun game this year. And he had some impactful plays. One touchdown was called back because of a holding penalty that he was able to draw. He had 2 or 3 holding penalties that he was able to draw in that game. No sacks in that game, but a bunch of pressures and hurries and a bunch of holding penalties at the most inopportune times for Texas. He can impact the game without even getting a sack. And that's when you know you have an impact on a game. They had to keep guys in as extra blockers to help Chip and to double team him because Connor Williams wasn't playing in the game. And so Obo was a big problem in that game. And that's when you know you have an impact, when they have to do things schematically to account for your presence. And he was able to make plays even when he didn't make plays. Pass rush plan, I actually see a guy here with the foundation of a pass rushing plan. A lot of guys come from college without the knowledge of how to put together a comparable pass rush plan. I actually see a guy setting up tackles, and that's fun to watch. So I think you could add, this is the guy that I look at in this draft. Of all of these later round, mid to late round guys that you have, and you got a bunch of them in this draft, he's the one I look at and I say, he's got a potential chance to be that diamond in the rough in this draft, the guy that we look at the end of the first contract and we say, damn, they got to pay him. He's really good. He's got a chance to be a star in this league. We'll see what he does, though. In the 5th round, 160th overall selection, Obo Naya Okawampro is for those of you scoring at home, Obo was a double. As we go to the 6th round, 176th overall selection, running back out of Tennessee, John Kelly is the selection. So this guy will end up being the backup, I think, in Los Angeles when it's all said and done eventually. And I think they like their backs in Los Angeles. They don't love them, obviously, other than Todd Gurley. I think John Kelly will provide them with a guy that they trust to give Todd Gurley some possessions off here and there to give him a chance to breathe. If anything were to happen to him, I think they feel confident that a guy like John Kelly might be able to step in and help them. This is a no-nonsense runner here. Not a lot of wiggle, not a lot of speed, but a guy that will go downhill fast and in a hurry, and he'll get every yard out of every carry that is there to be got. But again, not going to outrun anybody, and he's not going to make anybody miss unless he runs them slam over. That being said, 5'10", 216. People really look at him and forget just how big he is. Same thing with Alvin Kamara last year. People looked at Alvin Kamara and they discounted the fact that the guy was a legit 215. And I kept telling people that last year because, oh, he can't handle the load. He's too small. I'm like, bruh, he's 215. What are you looking at? Same thing can be said about John Kelly. Doesn't look it because of his short, compact frame. He's 215, though, folks. All right, 15 reps of 225. 35-inch vert, 10-foot broad, 4.5 flat. So it doesn't sound like he's not explosive, but trust me, he's not explosive. Suspended for 1 game in 2017 for misdemeanor weed possession. on a traffic stop where he had some lights out. Come on, guy. If you're going to have some shit out, make sure you ain't got weed in the car. But anyway, career stats, 327 career carries for 1,573 yards and 15 touchdowns, 43 catches for 350 receiving yards and no receiving touchdowns in his career in 2017, which was the 1 year where he was the guy. Remember, he had to sit through a lot of different players, even a quarterback that had more runs than him. And Joshua Dobbs had to sit behind Kamara. Remember, they also had a Jalen Hurd there. So he was really far down the totem pole. And this was the 1 year that he got a chance to be the guy. And he said, I'm out of here. There's a coaching change and a lot of turnover. Let me get the hell out of Dodge. 189 rushes in 17, which is more than half of his career total. So again, he was the guy in 2017 for 778 yards and 9 touchdowns rushing, 37 catches for 299 yards receiving and no touchdowns. So he's a guy capable of catching it out of the backfield as well. Speed, I put down, doesn't possess home run speed. You get a good glimpse of that against Florida, where he absolutely destroyed Florida for over 300 total yards in that football game. But he had a breakaway run, and he knew he was going to get caught. And he got caught somewhere around the 10-yard line. If he had any speed, he scores on that play, but he doesn't have the kind of speed that's going to allow him to break away from a defender, win a race. The defender didn't even have the angle, but was able to outrun him and catch him and hawk him down before he scored the touchdown. So that's a great example of him just not having home run speed. He can hit a bunch of doubles, the occasional triple. He's not going to hit many home runs. Quickness. He has plus quickness, though, and that Florida game also was a great example of him with his quickness. You saw some nice jump cuts and his ability to put some cuts together in that football game. Again, not going to make too many guys miss, but if you come up sloppily, he will stick his foot in the ground and will cut back and will make you miss. Acceleration, not a big tool that he uses, but again, there is a little juice there, not a ton. Again, he can't hit the occasional triple, not going to hit many home runs. Agility, nice jump cut to bounce to the outside versus Florida. He has the ability to do that. He ran up the back of his offensive lineman, quickly jump cut, then jump cut again, and all of a sudden, he found himself outside of the tight end. Uh-oh, we got some yards to go get. So, and then he was able to turn up, and that's where you see a little bit of that acceleration, able to start that engine back up, pick up a good gain of 9 on something that looked like he was going to probably get 1 or 2. So, does have a little bit of agility there. His vision, I put in tight quarters, his vision shrinks. All right. In space, much better at seeing cutback lanes. So what I mean by that is that when this guy approaches the line of scrimmage in tight quarters, his vision shrinks. He doesn't see cutback lanes as well as he does. And that's a separation, another one of those clear delineations between great runners in this league and marginal to average backs in this league is guys in tight quarters, they find a way to find space. They find the gap. They find the cutback lane. Guys with narrow vision that don't see things in tight quarters, they just run up the back of offensive linemen or run into a hole and take what they perceive to be there, and they don't see the bigger picture. Like Le'Veon Bell is a prime example. Shady McCoy, prime example. You get those guys in tight quarters, they see the cutback lane. So they're still jump cutting in tight confined spaces. So you think you got them, and then all of a sudden they squirm through the tiniest of cutback lanes, and all of a sudden they're out the other side, and they've picked up 17 on a play that looked like 3 or 4 yards. That's what elite backs do. That's what Frank Gore has been doing for years, getting skinny, finding the tiniest crevice, and all of a sudden Frank Gore's out on the other side. And you're like, what the hell is Frank doing getting out for 14 on a play that should have got 2? That's what the elite backs do. And John Kelly, I don't think he has that ability to see that cutback lane in tight quarters. You get him out in space where he's comfortable, he'll see cutback lanes and he'll make guys miss, sticking his foot in the ground and things of that nature, but not in tight quarters. Make you miss. His make you miss is power. I saw him steamroll over some defenders, run over guys. He will lower his shoulder. He has a low center of gravity. He will run you over, but he's not looking to make guys miss potentially out in space. Contact balance is really good. He's one of those. It seems like Tennessee runners have really good contact balance. I said the same thing. I thought that was one of Alvin Kamara's biggest attributes a season ago is his ability to put his hand on the ground and stop him from hitting the ground. John Kelly does the same thing. Toughness, durability, physical runner, gives you everything he's got on every single carry. So that's something you'll get with John Kelly. Receiving ability, he can't catch the ball. Nasty arrow route versus Texas, nasty arrow route, or the Texas route as they like to call it, versus Georgia. But fumbled at the end of it. Made a hell of a move, broke the running back or the linebacker off something proper, catches the football, gets up the field, picks up about 35. He's dragging defenders and then gets stripped at the end. Same thing Alvin Kamara did last year versus Texas A&M. So I'm not going to kill him. But then he dropped a potential game winner versus Florida at the end of the football game, over the middle of the field, beats the linebacker. Safety can't get there in time, and he takes his eye off the ball. It's a little behind him, but it's a catchable football. He catches that. He walks into the end zone. They win the football game. Instead, he drops it, and they end up going for it on 4th down and don't get it. You got to make those plays, man. Got to have them if you want to be elite. Pass pro, not afraid to stick his helmet in the fray. He's not the best at it, but he's not the worst at it either. Solid awareness, stamina, and snap volume. He didn't have to carry the load at Tennessee that often. This was his only year doing so. So not really sure. And then the rush yards that he was able to gain, they don't scare you. But Tennessee's offense wasn't that good either, so I don't want to kill him. Versatility is solid. Can pass block, can catch it out of the backfield, and he can run it. Ball security, 3 career fumbles, lost all 3 of them, so that's something he's got to work on. Patience, and I watched him lose a fumble, as I told you, in that Georgia game. Patience, it's okay. I think at the line of scrimmage, he's a little hasty at times. I told you he had a nice little jump cut to the outside against Florida, but that was because his offensive line did a really good job of allowing him to first run up their back. He wanted to run up the hole and take nothing, and then they sealed it off so well, he was able to then jump cut twice to get to the outside. I think he lacks patience a lot of times at the line of scrimmage. But he's got really good leg drive as a guy that runs really physically and hard. I like him, and I like this fit for him in Los Angeles with this football team. I don't think they have a clear backup running back, and I think he's a guy that they view as exactly that. Not a number 1 in this league, but a clear-cut number 2 that can get you some carries, some catches, and some snaps, some quality snaps in this league. And I tend to agree with that assessment. In the 6th round, 176th pick overall, running back out of Tennessee, John Kelly for me is we go to the next selection, and John Kelly, for those of you scoring at home, was a double. 6th round, 192nd overall selection. Offensive lineman out of Maine, Jamil Demby is the pick. So I'm going to get through the rest of this draft extremely quick because these guys are hit or miss guys. When you start getting into the 6th and the 7th round, we're starting to talk about guys that most likely won't make your roster. 1 or 2 of these guys have a legitimate shot, but you're talking about 5 or 6 selections here in the back end of the draft. All of these guys are not making this Rams roster, so I'll go as quickly as I can through these guys. Here's one that I do think has a chance to really make this Rams roster here, Jamil Demby. 34-inch arms, 5'8", 40, 17 reps of 2 1/4. Played in 40 of 41 games and started in 40 of 41 games. He's 6'5", 319. Watched him handle Bears draft pick in defensive lineman Belial Nichols out of Delaware with ease. Watched him against the Blue Hens in both 16 and 17. Thought he handled his against a guy that was an NFL prospect. Jamil Demby is another one of these guys that's very nasty, not a great athlete. That's the first thing that jumped off the screen at me. Obviously, the 5'5", 840 told me that he wasn't a great athlete. But then I said, well, let me see, because I didn't think that Michigan State center Brian Allen was going to be a great athlete because of the 5'3", 4, and he turned out to be a much better athlete than I thought he was going to be. We're not going to get that confused here. This is not an athlete. This is why I think the plan for him is to kick inside the guard. His feet just aren't fast enough to handle explosive edge rushers at the next level. He's going to have to kick inside the guard. That being said, he's a guy that you can tell enjoys the game of football. You watch him blow up a guy or make a quality block, and he's getting pumped up. He's screaming at the sidelines, and he's standing over a guy after he's knocked him down, and he's talking trash. He's a guy that is engaged and loves the game of football. You love guys that love the game. You can tell Jamil Demby loves the game of football. He can get stronger, 17 reps of 2 1/4, not scaring anybody, but he's got a big frame, and I think he's going to get stronger. And I love the fact that, again, much like Joseph Noteboom, it's not always pretty in terms of technique, but he gets the job done. He doesn't get beat very often. Now, again, much lower level of competition. He played at Maine, okay? So it's not like he was playing the likes of the SEC, the ACC, or the Pac-12, or the Big Ten. But nonetheless, he held his own. He did what he was supposed to do at a lower level of competition. And I'm anxious to see what this guy is going to do as a guard, because he was the tackle at Maine, and he held it down. But like I said, I saw guys that if they were a little bit more faster, more athletic, would have been able to run around him, because he's not the fastest guy. I don't like when he pulls, which worries me as a guard. You're going to have to pull. He's slow on the pull. Now, when he gets there, he does make contact, but he's slow on the pull. And, you know, sometimes as a running back, you don't have time to wait for a slow developing play and a slow plotting offensive lineman on a pull. Sometimes you just got to outrun your blocker and just go, because that backside defender, remember, that offensive lineman is pulling from somewhere, which means he's leaving a hole vacated and a space open for someone to come and replace him and fill that gap and come backside and make a play. And if he's not moving fast enough, you can get tackled from behind on a play. And Jamil Demby is one of those guys that just doesn't move very fast. So athleticism, not his best strong suit there. But I tell you this much, he competes, he's tough, he loves football, and I think he's got room for growth at the next level. So he's one of those guys you look to develop. He may not initially make your roster, but he'll be on the practice squad. And with the suspension of Jamon Brown to start this season off, who knows, Jamil Demby may be able to take advantage of some reps in practice, or he may be a guy that catches the coach's eye. They need some more depth up front. Maybe he's a guy that's able to sneak onto the roster initially with the injury, or excuse me, the suspension to Jamon Brown. Maybe he isn't, and he's a guy that they want to work with. Either way, I see him sticking around. Whether he makes the roster or he's on the practice squad, they're going to continue to work with Jamil Demby. In the 6th round, 192nd overall selection, offensive lineman out of Maine, Jamil Demby, for me, is Jamil Demby was a double for those of you scoring at home as we get to the next selection. 6th round, 195th pick overall. Defensive lineman out of Rutgers, Sebastian Joseph Day is the pick. This is the true definition of why I can't stand 11 draft picks, 12 draft picks, because somewhere in there, when you draft that many players, you're going to have 1 or 2 of these guys that serve absolutely no purpose. And that's where we find ourselves here in the 6th round with Sebastian Joseph Day. I tried to watch as many games as possible because I'm like, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm not seeing what they saw. I didn't see anything. 6'4", 305. I'm going to make this short and sweet. 24 reps of 2 1/4, 4'9", 340. So he can move at 300 pounds. Played in 50 games with 35 of them being starts. 3.5 career sacks, 13.5 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, 2 block kicks, and 3 PBUs. The block kicks are nice, but none of these numbers jump out at you. And even if you don't impact the game with numbers, impact the game with plays. I saw him constantly washed by double teams. Hell, I saw him picked up and scooped by single blockers at times. He doesn't make plays. He's not quick. He's got athleticism. I didn't see it off the snap. I didn't see anything here that warranted a selection. He's one of those guys that should have been undrafted, if you ask me. I didn't see much of anything from this guy. I saw a guy that was consistently blocked, a guy that, when double team, was moved 3-4 yards off the line of scrimmage. Hell, like I said, I've seen single blockers that would win against him and create space on the line of scrimmage. I didn't see a guy that was getting any pressure on the quarterback. I didn't see a guy that was impactful in the run game. I saw a guy that was just taking up space. And I can get one of those as an undrafted free agent. I don't need to draft one of those guys. I saw no nutritional value with Sebastian Joseph Day. None at all. He's a bunch of junk food here in the 6th round, and frankly, I don't need it. And this is what I'm talking about. When you draft 11 guys, you're going to get some funk somewhere in there, and Sebastian Joseph Day, for me, is that funk. 6th round, 195th overall selection. Defensive lineman out of Rutgers, Sebastian Joseph Day, for me, obviously, is. For those of you not paying attention, Sebastian Joseph Day was a single. We go to the 6th round, 205th overall selection, edge rusher out of Louisville. Trayvon Young is the selection. So with the release of Robert Quinn, they're looking for some edge rush presence. And, you know, when you play a 3-4 defense, remember last year was the first year of making that conversion to Wade Phillips 3-4 defensive front. When you're playing that defense, you need guys that can stand up in a 2-point stance and rush off the edge and be explosive and dynamic. And then when you come from a 4-3, sometimes those 4-3 base ends that are 3-point stance, 4-point stance guys, not used to being without their hand in the dirt, it's a hard transition for them sometimes. And so you look to get more natural athletes that aren't opposed to standing up. And here's another guy that they look at, much like Obo earlier in the draft, that they feel like with some time and some development may be able to help them. And I concur with that. 6'4", 258 pounds out of Louisville, 34-inch arms, 4'7", so comparable measurables and athleticism to Obo, who we mentioned earlier. 25 reps of 2 1/4. 2015 in the bowl game, he dislocated and fractured his hip, which caused him to miss the following season in 2016. So he came back in 2017, lacked a little bit of the explosion that he had prior to the injury, but seemed to be still a smart football player. 14 career sacks, 24 tackles for loss, 7 PBUs, 2 forced fumbles, and a blocked kick in his career. I'll quickly go through him. I like his measurables, like his athleticism. Doesn't have the explosiveness that you look for off the edge per se. He's not Obo in that department where he's going to blow by tackles with just pure athleticism and explosiveness off the edge. Hand usage is solid, but it needs work. Awareness. He is aware, though. Stays at home on the backside as a defender. Locates the ball carrier well. He's not one of these guys that will chase the cheese and the bait and be out of place. He stays at home where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be there. Sets a physical edge in the run game, especially versus tight ends. I think he can hold his own against offensive tackles as well. Ability versus the run. He can knife into the backfield and stop run plays before they start. Great example of that. And to me, the best game that I saw him in, there were 2 games where he was very impactful. The first game of the season versus Purdue and the last game of the season versus Mississippi State. Both of those games I thought he was exceptional in. But in that Mississippi State game, I thought he was even more so exceptional against the run, really being disruptive in the backfield, making plays very early on in the rep. Pass rushing ability, nice spin move for a rusher that doesn't have explosiveness. When guys with a spin move usually win, it's because they scare tackles to death with their speed. They get that tackle leaning on his outside, and then they use it against him by spinning back to the inside. Tackle can't recover fast enough. All of a sudden, you've got a direct line to the quarterback. But when I don't really respect your speed, I don't have to open up too much to the outside. I should be able to rebound if you spin inside and at least wash you clear to the inside enough so that the quarterback, even if he has to maybe step 1 or 2 steps to the outside and reset to get rid of the football, he can. Trayvon Young actually threatens tackles enough, or his spin is adept enough to where he's able to still get home on it. It's a beautiful spin move, similar to Obo's spin, where he gains ground and gets depth on his spin. So he's going up the field towards the quarterback. It's a good move. It's his best move, if you ask me right now. Solid tackling ability, coverage skills. He was able to drop as a spy into the quarterback's passing lane. Should have picked off a pass versus Purdue. It hit him right in his hands, but that's why he's a defensive lineman, so he dropped it. But he's got a little bit of coverage ability, really good motor and endurance, solid impact on the game, but doesn't really have a great pass rush plan, but he will set up the spin move, so that is something to look forward to. But he's a quality prospect. If you're looking for a guy to develop in the 6th round as a pass rusher, if he can stay healthy, there may be something here with Trayvon Young. I don't think he's ever going to be the explosive, dynamic rusher you're looking for, but there are a lot of guys in this league that don't have explosiveness that win in this league, and he may be one of those guys that has enough length and craftiness to get by in this league over time, similar to a Tamba Hali. We'll see. Tamba is a lot stronger than Trayvon Young, so we'll see if there's something here with Trayvon Young in the 6th round, 205th overall selection, edge rusher out of Louisville. Trayvon Young, for me, is Trayvon Young was a double for those of you scoring at home as we go to the next pick, 7th round, 231st selection overall. Linebacker out of TCU, Trayvon Howard is the pick. So as you can see, I look at Trayvon Howard, and you can look at him on the artwork behind me and see the size, 6 feet, 212. You look at his picture, he looks like a safety. He's an ex-safety that transitioned and blossomed as a linebacker at TCU. I think he's got to go back to safety at the next level. There's no way around it. He's got to be a safety. And I look at him as a guy that they are looking to develop in the mold of a LaMarcus Joyner. And I think that if he develops well, they may not pay LaMarcus Joyner. They've got to cut corners somewhere. When you're paying the likes of Brandon Cooks, and you've already given new money to Todd Gurley, and eventually you're going to have to pay Jared Goff if he continues to improve. And you look at the different positions that you have on your football team, and guys are going to have to get money. It's just the way it is. They're going to have to cut corners somewhere. They can't pay everybody. And LaMarcus Joyner may be one of those guys that may not get paid. And if Trayvon Howard is what they think he is, he could be the new LaMarcus Joyner for them. He's not LaMarcus Joyner, but he has the potential to be. And that's what they're going to find out over the next year. Can this guy be the safety that LaMarcus Joyner has been for us? And can we allow LaMarcus Joyner to hit free agency and not pay him what he's looking to get paid? We'll see. 4.56 40 for Trayvon Howard. 51 career games, 36 starts in those 51 games. Has started at both safety and linebacker, as I mentioned before, but did most of his damage as a collegiate player at the linebacker position. Left TCU as the leader in tackles under head coach Gary Patterson. And if you know, Patterson's been there damn near 2 decades, so that's saying a lot. 3 straight seasons of 100-plus tackles. This guy was a tackling machine. 343 tackles in his career, 18 of them for loss, 3.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 11 PBUs, and 3 INTs over the life of his career. So his measurables, if he's playing safety, they're just fine. If he's playing linebacker, he's extremely small. I'm assuming he's going to play safety, though. Good speed for the position at 4.56. Good athleticism, good acceleration. He runs through guys at times. You can see him going and using that range to get to ball carriers and run through them. Really short tackler. Obviously, a guy getting over 100 tackles per season over the last 3 years. He's a really sound tackler. Good awareness, sees what's happening in front of him and reacts to it very well. He slips blocks, not a guy that's going to shed them. Really beats guys to the spot. That's how he wins and makes his plays. He beats blockers to the spot to get to the ball carrier. Not afraid to take on blocks despite his diminutive size as a linebacker, but obviously he's not winning a bunch of those battles. He's a tackling machine. In man-to-man coverage, I think he's a little stiff. I don't necessarily love him in man-to-man situations, I thought that the tight end for Stanford, Schultz, who was drafted by the Dallas Cowboys, I thought he did a nice job of beating him in some man-to-man situations, giving him some option routes that really put Travin Howard on his heels. Didn't always make the play, did Schultz, but I thought he gave himself a chance with some of the routes he ran, and it showed a little bit of the stiffness that Travin Howard has in man-to-man situations. I like him better in zone coverage where he sees what's happening and can plant and drive on the football. Nice drive on the football in zone coverage over the middle of the football field versus SMU where he picks it off and takes it the distance for a pick six, makes a house call. So I think he's much better in zone coverage than he is in man situations. He can blitz a little bit. Saw him get a sack as a free hitter. I don't think blitzing is necessarily his forte, but you don't block him, he's a problem because he's got enough speed to close the distance very quickly, and he's got really solid range. This is a guy that you draft and you just see what you got, whether it's a special teams demon or you have a guy that can help you as a nickel backer, or you've got a guy here that can help you as a versatile defender that can play multiple positions. But I think when it's all said and done, they see him as a safety, and they want to see if they have anything here. And if they don't, they move on. It's a 7th-round pick, nothing lost. If he does have something, they may have their replacement for LaMarcus Joyner down the road. I'm not saying, I'm just saying we'll see. But in the 7th round, 231st pick overall, linebacker / safety out of TCU, Travin Howard, for me, is. As we wrap up this marathon draft in the 7th round, 244th selection overall, defensive lineman out of SMU, Justin Lawler, is the pick. For those of you scoring at home, Travin Howard was a double. However, unfortunately, Justin Lawler cannot say the same. 6'4", 262 pounds. He was a high school power lifter. He looks like that because he moves like a guy that was a power lifter. 5'0", 240. Let me repeat that. 5'0", 240. 8'10 broad, 27-inch vert. I pretty much put those numbers there to express to you that this guy is not an athlete at all. Appeared in 49 games at SMU, starting 37 of them. Never missed a game, so there's a caveat there. 20 sacks in his career, 39 and a half tackles for loss, 3 forced fumbles, 3 PBUs, and 6 block kicks. So he does bring an element of length and the ability to block kicks and time them up well. But look, I'm going to be really frank with you. I watched him in a number of games to get a feel for what the Rams saw here. And really, I think they see a try-hard guy. And I watched him on tape, and even more so than Sebastian Day. I can't remember the hyphenated part of his name, but even more so than him, you root for a guy like Justin Lawler. I mean, he's giving you everything he's got. He's a try-hard guy. God bless his heart. He's giving you every ounce of athleticism he's got, every ounce of try-hard he's got. And he's a guy you root for. And as a coach, he'll do anything you ask him to do. You tell him, go run through that brick wall. He'll run through that brick wall for you. You say, hey, go bust up this wedge. He'll go bust up a wedge. He'll do all the dirty work. He'll do everything you ask. And you got to love that and admire that in a player. But that can only take you but so far. And so he's not athletic. He has very limited movement skills. He's not going to beat anybody off the edge, period. I just don't see the value here in this pick. I just don't. I think, and really what makes his situation even worse is he's a tweener. Like, you don't play a 4-3. So he'd probably be more naturally fit for a base 4-3 defensive end. But you play a 3-4, he can't stand up as a rush defender in a 2-point stance. He's just not a natural enough athlete for that. He doesn't have any bend in his hips, can't change directions. There's no explosiveness. He can't put his hand in the dirt as a 5 technique. He's too small. So what do you do with this guy? Obviously, they're going to ask him to be a stand-up rusher on the outside, but he's not explosive. He may be able to set a physical edge in the run game, which maybe they see that in him and they like that, but it's not enough. It's not enough to get him a roster spot in my estimation. And so it's a huge uphill battle and climb for Justin Lawler in the 7th round, 244th overall selection. SMU edge rusher, defensive lineman, Justin Lawler for me is. So that's the Rams draft. It was too damn long. It was too many guys that you just don't know where they fit in the grand scheme of things. But when you don't have a 1st and a 2nd round pick, you just want to get in and you just start drafting guys. And you just don't stop until they tell you, okay, you have to stop now. And that's what they did. They made up for lost time, not having a 1st or a 2nd round pick by just drafting as many guys as they could. And they got 11 up in 5 rounds, which is insane. But there are some guys that have a chance to be impactful. I love the first 2 selections along the offensive line. I really think Obo has a chance to be a difference maker. John Kelly, I think, is going to be a quality backup running back for you. Trayvon Young may have some juice. We'll see what happens. I think you may have something there in Jamil Demby, but there's a lot of stuff there. Like I don't know what you're going to get out of Micah Kaiser. I don't. There is nothing to be had with Sebastian Day out of Rutgers. I don't. Sebastian Joseph Day. There's nothing there with Justin Lawler. But these are late round draft picks. Again, it is what it is. I didn't love this draft. I usually love the Rams draft. I think they get quality football players. Last year, they didn't have a 1st round pick, but they still had a hell of a draft. This year, not so much. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But nonetheless, this is what I thought of the Rams draft and what Les Snead was able to do in 2018. So that's going to do it for the Rams and their 2018 NFL Draft wrap-up here on the Louie Tee Network. Make sure that if you want to see the scores for each and every single player individually, check out the website, louieteenetwork.net. And make sure you're checking out that site as there are going to be a lot of changes coming to it in the near future. We've got a lot of content coming your way, a lot of different things you can participate in. So be sure to be checking on the site routinely for those updates. Make sure you're checking out the podcast, Louie Tee Network Podcast. A lot of content coming there as well. And that's available on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Google Music Play, and of course on the website, louieteenetwork.net. Many ways you can support the movement. All of that is down in the description, as are the links to the podcast. So check all of that out. I thank you so much for watching this video. Like and share it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already done so. There's plenty more where this video came from, so don't you go anywhere. Remember, we're changing the game one video at a time. I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.
Louie Tee Network.